Good morning, everybody. It's a Thursday morning. Well, it's 9:10. Just gonna do some more painting. Who would have thought? Still doing painting. One of these days. The song that I want to talk about today is from this album called The Songs of Leonard Cohen, and it's a song called Suzanne. I think around about 1981, I was in Liverpool. In somebody's flat, I can't remember which area Liverpool it was, somebody called Diane Strickland. She was actually seeing a guy called Adrian Singh, who was one of my pen pals, and I'd previously stayed at Diane's flat, this really horrible, damp, mushroom infested flat in an area of Liverpool called Everton, I believe it was, or it might, I think it was like Everton. And it was the night I went to see New Order for the very first time, and she put me up for a few hours before I got a few hours sleep before I headed back down to Ellesmere Port. When she moved into a new place, she had a few of us round one night, and we were all into sort of alternative post-punk music on like Factory Records and Zoo Records and what have you. And then she comes out with this album. When I first saw this album, I actually thought that was Dustin Hoffman. It does look a little bit like him, I suppose. I thought it was Dustin Hoffman. And she proceeded to put on the album on and play the song Suzanne. I think she played probably all of the album actually. She says, you wonder if you'll like this. And the interesting thing is, on the back of the sleeve here, is a description of Leonard Cohen, who I'd never heard of before, and it actually said Leonard Cohen conjurer, and goes on to to say that he'd released lots of 4 books of poetry. So when I heard this guy sort of speaking and singing, the combo speaking and singing, which Bob Dylan did a lot of, and also Lou Reed. And when I listened to it, I just thought, well, obviously, because he's a poet, it's not him playing, he's not composed the songs, or he's not playing any instruments. And it was only years later when I saw the Isle of Wight festival that Leonard Cohen came on it wearing a raincoat, if I remember. It wasn't a blue raincoat, he came on wearing a raincoat with another lassie, and with his guitar, and then proved me wrong to show that actually he did compose the songs and he played the guitar very well. So that was enlightening. Anyway, I listened along to this album, and very oddly, which goes back to 1966, I think it is. My God, I was only 4 years old when this came out, and it's got the lyrics of 2 of the songs on the back, Suzanne and The Strangest Song, and those 2 are my joint favourite songs on the album, as well as a song called So Long Marianne. Now the interesting thing about the song Suzanne, I think he's describing a relationship with one of his lovers. I think he had 2 lovers called Suzanne. He had a whole host of other lovers, which we'll get back to. But anyway, the interesting thing is, as I read these lyrics, it goes on about this relationship with Suzanne, and then all of a sudden he chucked in a curveball, where Suzanne doesn't get mentioned at all, but then it goes, and Jesus was a sailor when he walked upon the water, and he spent a long time watching from his lonely wooden tower, and when he knew for certain only drowning men could see him, he said, all men will be sailors then, until the sea shall free them. Reading that, it was like, what is going on here? And then he goes on to say, but he himself was broken long before the sky would open, forsaken, almost human. He sank beneath your wisdom like a stone. It's just so profound and just brilliant lyrics. But all of a sudden in this song, which was detailing a girl called Suzanne, all of a sudden you put this image, seems to have no relevance to it at all. And I'm not somebody who is a lyric man anyway. I don't really care about lyrics in a great way, as long as they're sung well. As long as the song's good and they're sung well, I don't really think about whether there's a story here or how profound the lines are. I just listen to music as its the whole body, which is ironic because when I write my own songs, I find the hardest part is writing lyrics because I want them to be profound. I want them to be a story. You know, if and even though, you know, if I was listening to my own lyrics, I wouldn't actually listen to a story. You know, it's just bizarre. But I try to do that, and so I sort of, you know, a lot of artists spend a lot of time trying to get certain lines right, or just certain words right, just one word trying to you know to sort of shoehorn in that rhymes with that, you know, a word 2 lines before in a verse or a chorus, and yet to me I don't try to make any sense of the lyrics because I just like to listen to the whole piece and not to try and think of what the artist's trying to tell us, because most of it's open to interpretation anyway. You know, if you actually, half the artists, you actually say, did you really mean this, and go, well, I might have, I don't know if that's what you think, you know. So you know, a lot of times it's not worth spending time trying to, you know, analyse artist lyrics in the first place anyway. People have been doing it for years over, you know, Hotel California and you know, love songs like that. You know, what were they on? What does this particular line mean? Half the time it may be just a throwaway line and the artist thought it was clever. And listen to Leonard Cohen here. Obviously it just shows this was a poet, because that is just a pure piece of poetry put into this, you know, which I thought at the time was a love song. And yeah, very, very profound, and it's a great song. So even regardless of the lyrical content, which you are forced to examine at this point because the lyrics are there, it is a fabulous song, and I've loved it ever since, and I regularly play it actually. Yes, it is my my favourite Leonard Cohen song. It has been with me since about 1981, so we're cracking on now for more decades. Ironically, when it comes to this synchronicity, which I've said a few times about Fairport Convention, Fairport, when they first started, actually used to do a live version of Suzanne by Leonard Cohen. But when they came to record their first album, they sort of moved on a few of the songs, and they had quite a large repertoire and decided to not put Suzanne in it. But when I got hold of Fairport Convention live at the BBC, the 10th song on it, which comes in at 5 minutes 25, you can't see it. It's 5 minutes 25, is actually Suzanne by Leonard Cohen, and what a completely utterly different version it is. Completely utterly different to the Leonard Cohen version, and it's a version I really like. So if you want to search that version up, I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube, Suzanne by Fairport Convention. And interestingly, more synchronicity is that some of the lovers that Leonard Cohen had, one of them was Joni Mitchell, and another one was Judy Collins. And of course I've said before that Judy Collins did Who Knows Where the Time Goes and had an album called Who Knows Where the Time Goes. And Joni Mitchell was an artist that Fairport Convention frequently covered. In fact, on the very first album here, on side 2 is, now that's the first album on the way if you've never seen it before, that's Fairport's first album. Side 2 is Chelsea Morning, amongst others that they did. And side 1, song number 2, I Don't Know Where I Stand, Joni Mitchell. And even when it came to their second album, which is What We Did on Our Holidays, their first song, side 2, Eastern Rain. I'm not too sure whether Joni Mitchell actually even covered that herself. Don't know. But that's a little bit of synchronicity yet again with with Fairport Convention and all these other artists. But the last little bit of synchronicity doesn't relate to Fairport Convention, which is quite an interesting story in itself. In the early 80s I was into Joy Division, which transformed into New Order when the lead singer sadly killed himself. Shortly before he died, Joy Division had written a new song, never got to record it, but did perform it live at the very last concert with Ian Curtis in May 1980, a song called Ceremony. So when New Order, when the rest of the band decided to rebrand themselves as New Order, they thought, well, we should finish this song off called Ceremony, which they did do. The first thing they proper recorded and ended up being their first single ever, which got released in, I think, March 1981. I'd been to see them in February 1981. I think the single came out the following month. And interestingly, either a press report about either Ceremony's release or about the subsequent tour that I saw them on, it might be that, but the particular writer had entitled the piece New Skin for the Old Ceremony, which I thought was a very bit of clever writing, because it was new skin for the old ceremony, because this was New Order drafted in somebody new, a girl, the drummer's girl, Stephen Morris's girlfriend, somebody called Gillian Gilbert, in to play keyboards and guitar, and the former guitarist, well, he's still main guitarist, he then became the main singer, a guy called Bernard. And so it was new skin for the old ceremony. I thought it was very, very clever. And it was only like years later, I subsequently found out that in fact the writer had nicked that title from a Leonard Cohen album called New Skin for the Old Ceremony. But there you go. Synchronicity is an amazing thing when it comes to the music world, it really is. Anyway, I'm off now. Hopefully I'll put a link for Suzanne by Leonard Cohen, and if you wanted this, I might even put the link for Suzanne by Fairport Convention if I can find it as well. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'm off to do some more painting. I shall see you on the dark side of the moon. See you later. Bye bye.